Level 1. You are 26, and you are standing outside a door on a quiet street in the city, a door with no sign, no name, nothing but a small brass number and a buzzer. And you are here because someone you barely know mentioned this place in a way that made it sound like a secret. You press the buzzer. A voice asks who you are. You give the name of the person who told you about it, and there is a pause, a long one, and then the door simply opens. Inside it is dark wood and low light, and the murmur of conversations you cannot quite hear, and a man at a desk looks at you the way a man looks at someone who does not yet belong. He tells you, politely, that the club is for members and their guests only, and that membership is by invitation. Then, he lets you wait in the bar for your contact. For 20 minutes you sit in a leather chair holding a drink you did not order, watching a room full of people who all seem to know something you do not. Here is what nobody tells you about this exact moment. The first private club you ever walk into does not make you a member of anything. It makes you aware that there is an entire architecture of rooms in this world that you cannot pay your way into, that money is not the key, that the key is something else entirely, something you do not yet have and cannot yet name. Most people who feel this walk out resentful, telling themselves it is snobbery, that they would never want to be part of something so exclusive anyway. That resentment is the sound of a door closing from the inside. A few people feel something different. They feel a question light up. What would I have to become for that door to open without me having to give anyone's name? That question is the beginning of everything. Because the people inside that room were not born knowing the answer either. They learned it, one room at a time. The club was never about the drinks or the leather chairs or the quiet. It was about proximity, about being in the same low-lit room as people who decide things. And proximity, you are about to learn, is a kind of currency that cash cannot buy. You finish your drink. Your contact never shows. You walk back out onto the quiet street, and the door clicks shut behind you with a sound that you will remember for the rest of your life, because it is the sound of a world you have just decided to climb into. What you do not yet understand, standing on that street, is that everything you thought you knew about how the world is organized is incomplete. You believed it ran on money, on talent, on hard work, and those things matter, but they are the surface. Underneath, the world runs on rooms like the one you just left, on who knows whom, on who will pick up the phone for whom, on a web of trust and access that is completely invisible to the people standing outside it, and completely decisive for the people standing inside. You have just glimpsed the architecture beneath the architecture, and you cannot unsee it. At this level, you notice. Level 2. You are 31 and you are being invited, properly this time, as a guest, again and again, by someone who has decided you are worth bringing around. This is how it actually works. You are learning, not through an application, but through a sponsor, a person already inside who vouches for you with their own reputation. You go to the dinners. You go to the talks. You stand at the edge of conversations and you learn the unwritten rules fast, because the rules are the whole point. You learn that you never talk about what you do for a living unless asked. You learn that name-dropping marks you instantly as someone who does not belong. You learn that the loudest person in the room is always the one with the least real power, and that the people who actually matter speak quietly and listen more than they talk. You are not a member. You cannot bring your own guests. You cannot walk in alone. But you are becoming a familiar face, and a familiar face is the first rung of the only ladder that matters here. The danger at this level is obvious, and most people fall into it. They mistake being invited for being accepted. They start acting like a member before they are one. They get loud. They try to use the room. They ask the powerful people for things too early. And the room closes around them quietly. The invitations stop, and they never understand why. The people who climb do the opposite. They are useful before they are needy. They offer something, a connection, a piece of knowledge, a quiet favor, long before they ever ask for anything. They understand that the entire economy of these rooms runs on a slow, patient reciprocity that you must put in for years before you take out, and that the people who try to shortcut it are spotted instantly and shown the door. This is the second thing nobody tells you about private clubs. You do not buy your way in, and you do not charm your way in. You are vouched for, slowly, by people staking their own name on you. And that means the real price of entry is becoming someone other people will risk their reputation to bring along. The sponsor who keeps bringing you is not doing you a favor out of kindness. They are doing it because you make them look good, because your presence reflects well on their judgment, because in some quiet way you are useful to their own standing in the room. The moment you understand that, the whole game changes. You stop trying to be liked and start trying to be valuable, an asset to the person sponsoring you, someone whose presence raises their stock rather than spends it. The people who grasp this early rise fast because they have understood the actual mechanism, that you climb these rooms by making the people above you glad they brought you. At this level, you are vouched for. Level 3. You are 37 and the letter arrives, or the call, or the quiet word over dinner. You are being put forward for membership. Someone has proposed you, and now others must second it. And there is a process, an opaque one, where people you may never meet decide whether you belong. And then one day it is done, and you have a membership of your own, a small card or a key, or simply your name in a book. And for the first time you can walk to that door and press that buzzer and give your own name. And the door opens because of who you are, not who you know. Something changes in you the first time that happens. You stop being a visitor in this world and become a resident of it. Now you can bring guests of your own, and you discover that this is where the real power of membership lies, not in your own access, but in your ability to grant access to others. You become a door for the people below you, the way someone was once a door for you. The danger at this level is that membership feels like an arrival, like you have made it, and you relax. That relaxation is a mistake. Because a club is not a destination, it is a network, and a network only pays out to the people who actively work it. The members who fail at this level treat the club like a luxury they have purchased, a nice place to have a drink. The members who climb treat it like the instrument it actually is. They show up consistently. They build real relationships, not transactional ones, with the people they now sit beside. They understand that the value was never the room. It was the slow accumulation of trust with the people in it, trust that one day becomes a phone call that changes the trajectory of their life. You begin, quietly, to think in decades about these relationships, to invest in people with no immediate return, because you have understood that the relationships you build here will compound for the rest of your life. This is the third thing nobody tells you about private clubs. Membership is not the prize. It is the license to begin building the only asset that matters at this level, which is trust. The genuinely powerful ones are often the quietest people in the building, dressed plainly, saying little, because at this level the people who need to broadcast their status are the ones who do not truly have it. You learn to recalibrate everything you thought wealth and power looked like. You learn that the man in the unremarkable jacket, nursing a single drink in the corner, may control more than everyone else in the room combined. The way you treat him when you do not yet know who he is says everything about whether you will rise. The members who climb treat everyone in the room with the same quiet respect, precisely because they have learned that you can never be sure who you are actually standing next to. At this level, you belong. Level 4. You are 44 and you are no longer in one club, you are in several, and you have begun to understand the geography of them. Which one is for the old families, and which is for the new money, which one the deals actually happen in, and which one is just for show, which room in which building is where the real conversations take place after the dinner ends. You have learned that the clubs themselves are tiered, that behind the club you fought to enter is another, smaller, quieter one that you did not even know existed until you were inside the first, and that this nesting goes deeper than you imagined. You are climbing through layers now, and at each layer the number of people shrinks and the weight of them grows. The conversations you are part of have changed. They are no longer about getting access, they are about using it, about the deal that two members are quietly putting together, about the introduction that one makes for another that is worth more than any salary. You have become a node in a network, someone through whom things flow, and you have learned that your value to the network is exactly equal to what flows through you. This is the level where you stop being a beneficiary of the rooms and start being a builder of them. You begin to make the introductions yourself, to connect the people who should know each other, to become the person others come to when they need a door opened. Every time you open a door for someone, you deepen the debt of reciprocity that the whole system runs on. The danger here is becoming a broker who takes more than they give, who trades on relationships so aggressively that the trust erodes. The people who climb guard their reputation inside these rooms more carefully than they guard their money, because they have understood that in this world reputation is the only currency that cannot be replaced once spent. They make careful introductions. They never burn a member. They understand that one betrayal, one self-serving move at someone else's expense, can undo 20 years of patient building in a single afternoon. This is the fourth thing nobody tells you about private clubs. The higher you climb, the more the entire system runs on a reputation so fragile that it must be protected above almost everything else. You also begin to understand, at this level, why these rooms have always existed and always will. In a world full of strangers, where most people you meet are trying to extract something from you, the clubs are a solution to a very old problem, the problem of who you can actually trust. Inside these rooms, everyone has been vetted, vouched for, filtered through years of reciprocity, and so the conversations can be more honest, the deals can be done on a handshake, the introductions can be taken at face value. You realize that what you fought to enter was never really a social club at all. It was a trust machine, a piece of social infrastructure that lets powerful people lower their guard with each other, and that the price of admission was always proof that you could be trusted to belong. The members who thrive at this level become master builders of that trust, the people everyone else relies on to make the right connection at the right moment. At this level, you connect. Level 5. You are 51, and you are now the one being asked. Younger people are being brought to you the way you were once brought to others. Sponsors are quietly testing whether you would consider backing this person or that one, and your word now carries the weight that someone else's word once carried for you. You have crossed an invisible line. You are no longer climbing through the rooms. You are one of the people who decides who else gets to climb. This is a different kind of power than you have held before, and it is heavier than you expected. Because now you are a gatekeeper, and every person you vouch for is a piece of your own reputation that you are wagering on them. You learn to say no far more than you say yes. You learn to read people quickly, to sense who has the patience and the character to survive these rooms, and who will get loud and needy and embarrass the person who brought them. The danger at this level is the seduction of your own importance, the slow drift into enjoying the power of the gate for its own sake, into making people court you, into mistaking the deference people show you for genuine respect. The people who handle this level well never forget what it felt like to stand outside the door at 26. They use their gatekeeping power generously and wisely. They bring up people who deserve it. They remember that the entire system stays alive only because each generation pulls the next one through. The ones who handle it poorly become bitter little kings of small rooms, hoarding access, and the rooms slowly wither around them as the energy and the talent flow toward the gatekeepers who are generous. There is a quieter realization here too. You begin to understand that the clubs were never really about exclusion at all. They were about trust at scale, a way for people who hold real power to find each other and rely on each other in a world where most people cannot be trusted. The exclusion was just the mechanism that kept the trust intact. This is the fifth thing nobody tells you about private clubs. The point of the gate was never to keep people out. It was to keep trust in. Once you understand that, your whole role as a gatekeeper transforms. You stop thinking of yourself as a bouncer guarding a velvet rope and start thinking of yourself as a custodian of something fragile and valuable, the trust that makes the entire room worth being in. Every person you let through either strengthens that trust or weakens it, and so your judgment about people becomes the single most important thing you contribute. You develop an almost physical instinct for character, for spotting the person who will give before they take versus the person who will exploit the room the moment they are inside. You make mistakes, you let the wrong person through once or twice, and you watch the damage it does, and those mistakes sharpen you. The gatekeepers who matter are the ones who have learned, often the hard way, that protecting the room is more important than being liked by the people who want into it. At this level, you gatekeep. Level 6. You are 58 and you are no longer just a member of these rooms. You are on the boards that govern them. You shape the rules now. You sit on the membership committee that decides who is admitted and who is quietly declined. You help decide the direction of institutions that have existed longer than your grandparents were alive and will exist long after you are gone. You have moved from being a person who uses the network to being a person who stewards the structure that makes the network possible. The clubs are no longer rooms you enter. They are institutions you are responsible for, and that responsibility changes how you think about all of it. You begin to think in terms of continuity, of how to keep an institution healthy across generations, of how to admit enough new energy to keep it alive without admitting so much that you dilute the very trust that makes it valuable. There is something else that happens at this level that nobody warns you about. The people around you stop telling you the truth. Everyone wants something from a person on the board, an introduction, a membership for their child, a favor, and so everyone shades what they say to you. The honest, abrasive feedback that sharpened you on the way up gets quieter and more careful the higher you climb. The people who keep their judgment intact at this level go out of their way to keep one or two people who will still tell them they are wrong. At this height, a single bad admission, a single person let into the room who should not have been, can quietly corrode an institution that took a century to build. You command now, but you command by subtraction, by the careful no far more than the easy yes. You have learned that the highest form of power in these rooms is not the ability to open doors, but the wisdom to know which ones must stay closed. This is the sixth thing nobody tells you about private clubs. At the top, the work is not getting in or helping others in. It is protecting the thing itself from the slow erosion that comes when too many doors open too easily. You come to understand, at this level, that every institution like this is always one generation away from disappearing. It survives only because each generation of stewards cares enough to protect it, to make the unpopular decisions, to decline the wealthy applicant who would weaken it, and admit the unknown one who will strengthen it. The institutions that last are the ones lucky enough to have stewards who treat them as a trust to be passed on rather than a privilege to be enjoyed. You feel the weight of that now in a way you never did as a member. The board members who fail are the ones who use their seat for their own ends. The ones who matter spend their tenure quietly, making the institution stronger than they found it, knowing most members will never even know they did it. At this level, you steward. Level 7. You are 66 and the rooms no longer mean anything to you personally, because the conversation is no longer about you at all. You have reached the level where you do not belong to the institutions. The institutions in some sense belong to people like you, a small number of people who quietly hold the structure of an entire world of access in their hands. The clubs, the boards, the foundations, the invisible web of trust that connects the people who decide things. You are now one of the few who tend the whole web rather than any single strand of it. And the question changes completely. It is no longer how do I get in, or even how do I help others in. It is how does this outlast me? You begin to think about succession, about who will hold these institutions when you are gone, about how to pass not just membership but judgment, the hard-won sense of who belongs and why, to a generation that did not have to climb the way you did. You start thinking in terms that have no natural endpoint, in institutions designed to carry trust forward across generations, in the slow, careful cultivation of the people who will one day stand where you stand. The young man who stood outside that unmarked door at 26, holding a drink he did not order, watching a room full of people who knew something he did not, would not recognize the weight you carry now. The people who reach this level and waste it are the ones who never make the shift, who treat their position as a personal trophy, who use the gate for vanity until the institution rots under them. The ones who matter understand that they are stewards of something far larger than themselves, that the trust they protect touches careers and families and futures far beyond their own life, and that the only goal left worth having is to make it endure. There is a strange peace that can arrive at this level, available only to the people who made the shift from taking to tending. The hunger that drove you for 40 years, the wanting that lit up on that street at 26, finally quiets, not because it was satisfied by status or money, but because it was answered by responsibility, by becoming the kind of person the whole structure can rest on. The people who never make that shift never find the peace. They reach the top still hungry, still grasping, and the institutions they were meant to protect grow brittle in their hands. And far below, on a quiet street decades ago, a 26-year-old hears a door click shut behind him and feels a question light up that he cannot yet name. He does not know that the answer to that question, pursued across a lifetime, ends right here, at the level where you no longer knock on doors because you have become one of the people who decides where the doors are. At this level, you endure. The payoff. So let me give it all back to you in one breath, because the pattern only reveals itself when you see the whole climb at once. At the unmarked door, you notice. As the repeated guest, you are vouched for. With your own membership, you belong. Across the network, you connect. As the sponsor, you gatekeep. On the board, you steward. And at the top, you endure. 7 levels, 7 verbs, and notice what they do. They start as things the rooms do to you, and they end as things you do for the rooms. Here is the thing nobody on YouTube will tell you about private clubs and the closed world of access. The room was never the point. The club is just the visible shadow of an internal climb, from someone who stands outside wanting in, to someone who is vouched for, to someone who holds the gate, to someone the entire structure of trust quietly depends on. The leather chairs and the unmarked doors are only ever a measure of which version of yourself you have become. Most people stand outside that first door, feel the resentment, and walk away telling themselves they never wanted in, which is exactly why most people spend their whole lives in the rooms anyone can enter and never once see the rooms behind them. Remember the 26-year-old outside the unmarked door, holding a drink he did not order, watching a room full of people who knew something he did not, hearing the door click shut behind him on his way back out to the quiet street. He thought he had been turned away from something. What he had actually done was see, for the first time, that the world has rooms behind its rooms, and that the key to them is not money but who you become. The question that lit up in him on that street is the identical question, only answered, that carries a person all the way to holding the gate that others stand outside of. Same person, same hunger, different side of the door. If this video changed how you think about access and power, hit subscribe, because this channel is built for the version of you that is climbing quietly while everyone else is still trying to buy their way into rooms that were never for sale. The first closed door is the one that wakes you up. Go become the person it opens for.